Okay, well, welcome to Waterloo AI's co-funding for AI applied research projects. We have an exciting group of presenters today. Our agenda for today, I'm going to just give a brief overview. Then from there, we go to OCI presentation. And OCI, for those of you who don't know, is Ontario Centre of Innovation, formerly OCE. Amir is going to be presenting from there. After Amir, we're going to have an NSERC presentation by Louisa. And then we go, last but not least, to Mitacs presentation by Amanda Green. And then at the end of that, we're going to put them all together on camera, bundled co-funding opportunities, because some of these programs overlap. So myself, I'm Harold Godwin, Managing Director for Waterloo AI. Welcome to all those today who are attending. Our event will be recorded. Please feel free to ask questions at the bottom of your screen. There's a Q&A. You can type them in, or you can ask the questions, likely that way. So the way we've set it up is each presenter is given 30 minutes, roughly 20 minutes for presentation, and then 10 minutes for Q&A, and then more Q&A during the roundtable. So, as part of the attendance today, we're trying to figure out, well, who is catering here? This was a reach out meeting for both industry and academia because it's co-funding. And what does that mean? Some dollars from industry that is then matched with the organizations that are presenting today. That flows to research, the research dollars for the AI researchers. So I'm going to ask Jacob to pop up a quick poll question just to understand who is our audience today. And if you could click on whether you're from industry or academia, then we have a better idea of who's attending. So why did we have this event? Well, obviously behind all the projects is the funding. A lot of questions with, if I have a certain amount of money, whether I'm a small, medium, or large enterprise, which ones apply, which ones don't. Hopefully all those questions today will be answered. Please don't be shy. Bring your questions forward. This is a forum for yourselves. Again, whether you're academia, whether you're industry, we'd love to hear some scenarios. Well, I've tried to fund it this way. I would like to match it the other, things like that. So without delay, I'm going to introduce our first speaker. Our first speaker for today is Amir from OCI. So who is Amir? Amir received his PhD in mechanical engineering from the University of Waterloo. I'm just going to ask Jacob to pull up Amir's presentation. His previous experience as a serial entrepreneur, more than a decade of research in academia, and leading many successful industry academic partnerships have made him a true believer in supporting Made in Ontario solutions through such collaborations. So Amir, I'm going to turn it over to you and talk to us, if you like, a bit about OCI and how that, I know you've had a name change, and then what programs you have to talk to today.
Awesome. Thank you, Harold. And thank you, Waterloo AI, for providing this opportunity. So let me share my screen, actually start with the presentation I will talk about. Okay, I will go to presentation mode, and I hope that everyone can see my slides. Okay, so as it was mentioned, Ontario Centre of Innovation, or OCI, formerly OCE, is an organization in Ontario which support and promote innovative Made in Ontario solutions. And in this presentation, we will give you an overview of who we are, what we do, how we do it, and then we will focus on funding opportunities for AI applied research projects through one of our flagship program called VIP. And as it was mentioned, I'm the Business Development and Commercialization Manager based at Waterloo. And with that, I will hand it off to my colleague, Patrick Farrer, to introduce himself and go through the rest of the presentation. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Amir. Patrick Farrar, Business Development and Commercialization Manager, also based in Waterloo. So who is OCI? We're a not-for-profit with an independent board of directors. We receive funding from the Ministry of Economic Development, Job Creation and Trade, and we deploy innovative programs that drive positive economic outcomes for all of Ontario. Our vision is prosperity from innovation. Our mission is to accelerate innovation and bring commercialization and jobs to the province. And our mandate is to build and deliver programs that fulfill our mission. And Amir will go into great detail on our programs that are available for Waterloo AI. Amir and I are part of our business development team. We're deployed across Ontario. We support industry partners, both large and small, and we work with academic partners and regional innovation networks to connect them with industry and solve industry-specific problems. As mentioned, we're pan-provincial, so we have projects in nearly every Ontario community, as you can see on this map. And I'll just finish off with some highlights from what we call our return on innovation. So in fiscal year 2019, we invested over $350 million through our programs. The result of this, creating over 7,000 new jobs. We invested in hundreds of startups across the province and generated hundreds of millions of dollars for our partners. And now Amir will go a bit into our programs.
Thanks, Patrick. So as I've mentioned, if I want to condense what mentioned in a sentence, it's going to be supporting and promoting innovative made in Ontario solution. But how we do it, we have different programs. Actually, we have a portfolio of programs tailored for different audiences. We have the VIP program, which I will talk about. The details of it going to be the main focal point of this presentation, which support industry academic partnership. Market readiness is a program that we invest in early stage startups. NGNP has a focus on cloud computing. International soft landing program handpick interesting companies all around the world and try to help them to land in Ontario. Encore 5G, as its name says, help companies to deploy 5G in their current or future line of product. And the last but not least, Ontario Vehicle Innovation Network, or OVIN, which you may know it by its previous name, which was AVIN, which has a focus on mobility. And with that, I will go through some of these programs that I thought are going to be interesting for this audience. Okay. Okay, so starting with the market readiness program. So market readiness, in contradiction to many other OCI's program, is an investment fund. So it's a dilutive funding, which, again, compared to many of our programs, which are grants, non-dilutive. In this specific program, we will try to find interesting opportunities in earlier stage companies and with a focus on spin-off out of universities. So we all know that Velocity is one of the most reputable campus-linked accelerator Canada-wide. So, and we already invested in many companies coming out of Velocity. So if you are associated with a company as a founder, co-founder, advisory board, which are in earlier stages, raising money in pre-seed $500 to $2 million, we would be more than happy to look at this opportunity, and we may invest as a follow-up investor. Again, I will leave the details for Q&A or for future meetings if you are interested to know more about it, and feel free to reach out to me or Patrick for any of these programs. Encore 5G. So Encore 5G introduced a couple of years ago. We partnered up with big names in the industry: Ciena, Ericsson, Dell, CGI, and IBM, and recently NVIDIA, and many more. So right now, what we offer is free access to 3 test beds, which are packed with new technologies. One in Waterloo, Community Data Hub, Uptown Waterloo. The other one in Mars, Toronto, and the last one in West Ottawa. But what could you expect from AIP? So first of all, it has 2 components. One of them is the network fabric, which is 5G standalone network, millimeter waves, and also the IoT network, which is NB-IoT and LTE Canon 1. And in terms of the hardware software capabilities, we have edge compute, which is the only place in Canada, at least to my best of knowledge, which this edge compute is experimentally available and is perfect for AI deployment. Remote access is actually sitting on the top of these edge compute nodes. And finally, AR VR engine, which is actually based on a Cloud XR by NVIDIA and a solution by OVA. And these are, again, we offer the access to these test beds for free. I call them free playground, packed with toys. And it's open for both companies and researchers. And again, if you're interested, please let me know. There's an online form. It will take 20 minutes of your time, and then you could register, and the access will be granted in 2 or 3 business days. Ontario Vehicle Innovation Network, or OVIN. Some of you may know this by AVIN, Autonomous Vehicle Innovation Network. It was how it was introduced. But right now, we saw in the past year, we saw the transition from AVIN to OVIN with a broader scope. Now it has a focus on mobility, including electrification, autonomous vehicles, a smart city, winter technology, and many more. There are different programs under this Ontario Vehicle and Innovation Network, which universities and academies could be service providers to the companies which will apply to these programs. Again, there are so many details. I will leave it to further discussion if you're interested. But let's talk about the main reason that we are here, talking about funding opportunities for applied research in AI. VIP, it's our flagship program, Voucher for Innovation and Productivity. It supports and promotes industry academic partnership. It has 3 pieces. It's OCI and its partners, industry, and academic institutes. And academic institute and the PI will be the main applicant, but again, industry and OCI and its partner are going to be will complete the puzzle. And for this specific program, we also partner with NSERC and also Mitacs, that I will my friends at both NSERC and Mitacs can talk about the details of our partnership, but I will touch on some of the aspect of it. So VIP itself has, I would say that right now there are different programs, but it has 2 mains. One of them is VIP Standalone. VIP Standalone, for this specific one, we are looking for industry partner which are for-profit corporations with 2 years being in business and minimum 5 full-time employees or equivalent. So for example, it could be 3 full-time, 4 part-time. But what are we looking at in terms of the budget? For the project size, we are looking at up to $300,000 value of project size in total. And out of that, half of it OCI will contribute in cash. So if you come in with the $300,000, OCI will contribute $150,000, so 50%. And the remaining 50%, we expect the company to put 25% cash and 25% in kind. It says 1-to-1 because in kind is actually cash that company contribute in its own location. So both of those cash spent at the academic institute and the cash spent at the companies are cash, but what we call the later the in kind. In terms of the duration, we are looking at 6 to 24 months, but we're a fully loaded project that I will show it to you in terms of the breakdown, $300,000. It's going to be a 2 years project. Okay, so let's look at the $300,000 project again. We are looking at OCI cash. OCI will contribute $150,000 cash, and from the remaining $150,000, company will contribute $75,000 cash and $75,000 in kind. But the only thing that we need to take care or actually take into account is that I know that some academic institutes, including University of Waterloo, will apply an overhead to the cash contribution of the company. We will just inform you about it, but it's not going to sit anywhere in a budget line items or any budget of the project. But this is something that they need to take care of it. For example, to my best of knowledge, the overhead for University of Waterloo right now is 30%. So realistically, $75K times 1.3, we are looking at $97.5 thousand real cash contribution. But again, the research office of University of Waterloo could actually provide more information on that part. But again, this is just something that I will say for the information. Okay, and the second program is very similar to VIP Standalone, but with minor differences. For this specific one, we deliver it with our friends at NSERC. So in terms of the eligibility criteria, we are almost looking the same, but the only difference is this one is capped for SMEs. For the first one, the VIP Standalone MNEs, multinational enterprises like Ford, GE can come in with the project and we will support it as long as they have an R&D operation in Ontario. But for this one, we are looking at SMEs, less than 500 people. So 5 to 499 full-time employees. That's the only difference in terms of the industry partner. And the second one is the researchers and colleges eligible to hold Tri-Council funds. This is a criteria which is coming from the NSERC side. In terms of the project budget, so as I said, for the VIP standalone, we are looking at $300,000 cap maximum. But for this one, it's capped at $90K. But it will have better cash leverage. How? For this one, OCI and NSERC, let's talk about the maximum, $90K. And OCI and NSERC will both contribute $30,000. So 90, 30 OCI, 30K NSERC, and from the remaining 30, again, half of it gonna be cash, $15,000 cash and $15,000 in kind from the company. This one, the duration is capped at 12 months. So if you want to compare it, 300 compared to 90K, duration 12 to 24 and different cash contribution or cash leverage. Let's talk, okay, so this is another way of looking at it. NSERC will contribute 20 to 30K, OCI will contribute 20 to 30K, and then industry partner 20 to 30K, which half of it gonna be the cash spent at the academic institute and the remaining gonna be the in-kind. Okay, this is another breakdown of the budget for a fully loaded project coming from VIP NSERC. So 90K, 30K from OCI cash, you could expect it, 30K from NSERC, and from the remaining 30, $15,000 from the industry and $15,000 from the industry in kind. Again, on the industry cash, they need to take care of the overhead by themselves. So there's some points that I want to mention at the end of this specific part. First of all, how it works, how the process look like. So again, the PI, the principal investigator, the prof out of University of Waterloo, for example, AI faculties, gonna be the main applicants. They will lead the project and then they will work with the industry partner. So in many cases, normally when the industry partner will reach out to us, they already have their PI in mind. But if not, for example, it was a recent case that we will reach out to Waterloo AI, that we have a company that are interested in your services. We are looking for a proper PI. Please make the introduction. So we provide this matchmaking or dot connecting services on the top of it. But whatever happens from your side, PI side or industry partner, we will be more than happy to sit in a one kickoff meeting talking about the scope of the project, and then we can take it to the next level. Okay, it was the VIP NSERC, but as I mentioned, we are partnered with Mitacs. Amanda Green will kindly talk about our partnership with Mitacs as well and how it looks like. But again, VIP can be a really good opportunity to support applied research in AI. And the last part about the timing of the processes. So for the first one, VIP standalone right now, we are looking at, after the submission, we are looking at less than a month or close to a month's turnaround to get the final result. For the VIP NSERC, it's a bit more, so we are looking at closer to 3 months. But again, I would really appreciate it if Louisa could talk about the timing process on that side as well. And with that, thank you very much again, Waterloo AI, for providing this opportunity. We would be more than happy to have a follow-up conversation with anyone interested in our programs. And I will leave some time for Q&A. Thank you, Harold.
Okay, well, that's great. Thank you. Again, I've sent if you have questions, you can put them in the Q&A, or hey, we're casual today. If you just want to click on the raise hand and reach out and ask the question to Amir. I'm going to start with a few questions, if you don't mind. So, you talk about, one of the questions is, can a company have more than one project at a time?
That's a really good question. So what we have in terms of the regulation for this VIP program, the company cannot hold more than $150,000 OCI funding, which means that they can have one fully loaded project $300,000 one. But I would say that case by case, depending on the stage of the company, the type of project they want to work on it, we could ask for an exemption from the director of the program. But normally, and also it depends on the history of how the history of how we work with that specific company. So I would say that yes, it's possible, but it's going to be an exemption, and it will be decided by the VIP team and the director of the program.
Okay, I have one question here in the Q&A. It says, do you have any projects for postdoc in the field of application of AI in manufacturing? So maybe I want to just say something first before I get you to. So Amir's been generous in forwarding company inquiries, because one of the inquiries typically come in, I've got this challenge I need done. How do I find a researcher? So we take those inquiries, we put them into the funnel and blast them off to our faculty, which then typically work with their postdocs and researchers underneath them to build a response. We call it our call for proposal process. But I'll bounce that question back to you, Amir. Do you have any projects for postdocs in the field of application of AI in manufacturing?
Again, so it's how OCI handle this funding opportunity is different from some other agencies. So for us, we work with the profs who are eligible to apply for the VIP program. So we support postdocs researching in this field, but in direct way. We will support. We have dozens of projects that there are many postdocs are involved in those projects. But again, we as an eligible applicant, definitely it should be someone faculty member or adjunct prof, and then they could utilize their postdocs as a part of this project. But I would say that I'm afraid to say not directly with the postdoc, but as I mentioned, indirectly through the programs. The projects actually.
Okay, so I have another question here. You mentioned that the company should have R&D operations in Canada. What if our head office is in Ontario, but AI team is in Quebec?
As long as, so that's a good point. So it's really important if it's about that what type of R&D is happening. So if the headquarters is Ontario, and definitely you will have some level of R&D happening in Ontario, it should be good to apply for the VIP projects. And we don't expect the company, because I know that right now, yes, it is specifically given the current circumstances, many people are working remote. You may have a team working out of a different part of the Canada. So I would say yes, as long as the headquarters is in Ontario.
Okay, great. Good answer. So I have another question here. Thank you for your presentation. My question is, can these projects have a co-PI from another Canadian university not in Ontario, along with a PI in Ontario? Or
Yes,
is it strictly for universities in Ontario?
Yes, that's possible, as long as the main PI is coming from Ontario. For example, I think we are talking about University of Waterloo. So yes, for if the main PI is going to be from the University of Waterloo, and then the co-PI could be someone out of the province. For this one, I could get back to you. I'm very sure, I will say 99% sure, but I could double check with our VIP team and get back with the definite answer. But I'm very sure that it's possible in that way, because as long as the PI is coming from academic institute in Ontario.
Okay, so I can't see who asked that question, but if you could reach out to my email, hgodwin@uwaterloo.ca, I will then know your name and forward that to Amir for follow-up. I have another question here. Can the PI or co-PI be a part owner of the company partner?
That's a really good question. So it depends. It depends on the amount of ownership. Is it advisory role? Are they sitting on advisory board? So do they have the controlling shares? So what we would say that if they are the major shareholders of the company, I would say no. But if they are the minor one, or they get these shares as a part of the advisory role, I think it's still possible. So in these cases, again, we will collect the information, relay to our VIP team, and the director and the lead program. The lead of the program will decide about it. So I would say that it's going to be an exemption if it's a minor thing, but again, it really depends on the processes and the amount. So I would say that please reach out to me with the details, and I will try to follow it up with the VIP team as well, if you're interested.
I have a question here from an anonymous attendee. How are PIs and industry partners matched? So I'm going to answer that again from the Waterloo AI model. We have an industry partner knock on the door. They have a challenge to be solved. We find a researcher. Somewhere in there, we figure out, the magnitude of the project, whether they're an SME, whether they're a multinational MNE, and then we look at which programs we can match with. So that's possibly one from OCI, possibly one with NSERC, possibly Mitacs, combination. So we try and help facilitate that industry partner match. If it's going the other way, which is the PI has an idea for a project, that's a little more complicated to find an industry partner. But if you could reach out to me, then I can figure out a way that maybe we can find an industry partner. Amir, how would you answer that question? How are PIs and industry partners matched?
Actually, it's just really, I think you explained it very well. So we have very good friends like Waterloo AI that will help us to do that. And on the top of that, we have a network of business development managers sitting in different parts of Ontario, as was mentioned, from Windsor to Ottawa to Sudbury. So in many cases, companies will come in and ask, okay, so I'm interested in your VIP program. I have a project in mind. Please find the correct PI for me, the best, so someone who can fit the bill. And then we will approach to our network. For example, for me, I will approach to Harold that this is the project, this is the company. Do you have anyone in your portfolio or in your directory of faculties that are interested? And then we will make it happen in that way. Or it happens the other way. Sometimes the PI will come. So yes, we provide the services, but from now on, what we are trying to do is any projects, any kind of interest coming from companies who are interested to work with anything AI in University of Waterloo, I will forward it to Harold and his team, and Waterloo AI, I'm pretty sure they are going to be a very good filter to make sure that actually these projects will land in good and capable hands.
Okay, so, well, thank you for that. I'll take that as a compliment for not just ourselves, but the whole organization. So one of the questions I think you brought in your presentation, I want to clarify, you talked about the overhead match. If any industry partner is attending today and want to understand what that means, just reach out to me and we'll have a discussion and figure that out. Speaking of that, we did our opening survey. At that point, we had 49 attendees, and the question was, who's here today? Industry and academia. 29% are from industry, the remainder 71 from academia. So just so you understand who the audience is. So I do have a question for you because it was kind of interesting. Is this 5G test bed edge computing AI deployment, is this virtual? Is it a real? Talk to us further about what's that all about.
Awesome, sure. That's a good question. So 5G by itself, I know many of us are familiar with it. Yeah, we can see that 5G icon on our phone right now. But what's the difference? What we see on our phone right now, and then what we offer at the 5G test? First of all, right now what we have at the test bed is a 5G standalone compared to the 5G non-standalone that most commercial carriers right now offer in Canada. So this is the big difference, is millimeter waves. And the second one is the IoT network, but specifically talking about the AI capabilities, edge compute. Edge compute is servers sitting just beneath the BTS, the antennas. So which means that you have servers sitting a couple of 100 meters away from the user. So it's the definition of edge. Many actually previously when we were talking about the edge was application or the mobile phone sitting in the hands of the user. But right now we have a different definition of edge, which is a couple of 100 meters away, but in a bigger capability. We are talking about CPUs and GPUs, very, very, very capable ones. And for example, for autonomous vehicle, if you can train your algorithm and then deploy them on these machines, or actually use them for real-time training. But and why it's important and it's interesting, because I would say the turnaround in terms of the delay, we are talking about 10 to 15 milliseconds. So it's going to be fast, real fast. So again, it's actually servers sitting a couple of 100 meters away from the user, just beneath the antennas.
Okay, great. So you've got some other, actually, I just got to remind before I forget, Amanda, I'd like you to remember to talk about the program you have. You send me that list every 2 weeks of all the different companies. And, you know, that may be a way for them to get their project into the AI pipeline, which obviously isn't just serving Waterloo AI, but the whole AI network across Canada. So a note for you to address that, please, Amanda, when you talk about Mitacs. So is there any other questions from the field? I think we're kind of exhausted here on questions. Oh, I know I have a question for you. I've lived on the other side of the fence as the industry partner, small companies, startups. It always seems when a funding opportunity came up, by the time you heard about it, it was almost filled and there was nothing left. And it was like, oh, I missed another one. So talk to us a bit about the timeline here. Like, is this an ongoing program? Are there enough funds there that people are going to have access to? Or is this something that's going to dry up in a month and then this whole meeting was a waste of time? I'm just kidding. You know, what's your thoughts on that?
That's a good question too, Harold. So I would say that VIP, again, it's one of our flagship programs. It's been here for many years. And to my best of knowledge, we never stopped providing it. So, and the same is story for the VIP, both the standalone and NSERC. There were some hiccups. For example, we will put pause in order to give some buffer to review the applications. A specific example for the VIP NSERC, it happened last year, but for the VIP standalone, it's a rolling application. And again, I would say that right now, there is no deadline. There is enough funding. Feel free to apply. And again, the turnaround is super fast right now. It's a month. It's going to happen very soon. But again, if you have a project in mind that will be activated, for example, in 2 months, 3 months from now, I would say that no worries. I'm 100% sure that even for the next fiscal year, we have the VIP as our flagship program, and there is no cap on the funding opportunities right now. Yes, if we, for example, based on our partnership with Waterloo AI, if it goes 10x, then we need to think about the other resources. But right now, I would say there is no limitation. There is no deadline in mind right now. It's a rolling application.
Okay, my goal is to put as many projects in your funnel as possible. So speaking to that, there's going to be some interest. I'm just judging from our 71% attendance here by academia and from the industry. What's the next step? What do they do? Do they reach out to me? Do they reach out to you? How do they get to you? What are the guidelines, the nitty gritty, the fine details?
Awesome. That's a good question too, Harold. So in terms of the engagement, so they could actually reach out directly to me or Patrick, as we are representing the region, the KW region. So we could set up a meeting with you and your potential industry partner, and then we can scope the project. Or we can reach out to Harold. He's already, I think he knows the VIP detail right now, even maybe better than me. But again, it's up to you. We can reach out to Harold and he will relay you to us, or reach out directly to us. But what will happen is we will have one meeting with the PI, the prof, the industry partner, and then that's a specific meeting based on the scope of the project that you have in mind. We could judge on that, is it a proper, viable VIP project or not? If the answer is yes, right after the meeting, I will open the application for you on the portal, and you could actually start populating the information, and we will work with you closely. We will give you a walkthrough. And I've seen the cases that they managed to close the application in 2 weeks or so. Okay. So, and it will go through the internal and external reviews. And again, the whole thing can be less than 2 months, and after application, 1 month. And just one more thing, I think I forgot to mention it. That what's the differentiator? Why we are different? We have a focus for the VIP on commercialization. We really appreciate that there should be some kind of fundamental research, but we wanna. I think the name of this seminar is a very good applied research. We are looking for applied research that will be commercialized at the end of the project. We don't want to see it right after it, but we want to see that the industry partner have a plan to commercialize it. And that's why applied research is definitely what we are looking for.
Okay, so let's. I'm going to work through. I'll protect the names, protect the innocent, if you know, kind of expression. So I'm going to go to your $300,000. At the end of the day, the hard cash going to the researcher is $225, but it must be spent in 2 years. That's no easy task. That's quite a few people on that team to get that done. So this is just a bit of a framework here for the researchers online. You're probably looking at a couple of master students because it's a 2-year, maybe a postdoc or two. And if you could talk a little bit about who else can be on that team, postdocs, research assistants, who else is on the team to spend that $225 in 2 years?
So I will share the, I think you already have, Hal. I really appreciate to share the eligible expenses document that we have. If you don't have it, I can actually share it with you again. I'll share it with the audience. So we have a definition for eligible expenses. So I will say that it's 3 main categories. One of them is travel and accommodation in Ontario. It will be supported with some limitations. Then the hardware and software material. So if it's a consumable, I would say that it's supported. If it's a hardware like a laptop, they should be the depreciation value should be taken into account. But the main budget line items are salaries, as you mentioned. So postdocs, undergrad. So there's some minor limitations, but as long as the people that you mentioned on your team are on the payroll with university, for example, postdocs, undergrads, master's student, whatever, they're paid by the university, they are eligible for being paid through this specific program. Even your lab director. So you're also eligible to be part of this program. We don't have any limitation on that part.
Okay, well, I think we've got enough here. If you have any more questions, Amir is going to be part of the panel at the end. So thank you so much, Amir. This has been great.
Pleasure.
So we're going to now move on to our next panelist, which is a presentation by Louisa Ho. And Louisa and I, this is the first time I've met, so welcome aboard. Let me just give a quick introduction on Louisa. She is the Research and Innovation Development Officer at NSERC Ontario Regional Office. So, of course, you all know NSERC is National Sciences and Engineering Research Council of Canada. So Louisa Ho works closely with research community to support collaborative projects, partnerships for the Alliance program. Prior to joining NSERC, Louisa attained a PhD in cancer genetics before transition to various university technology transfer offices in Ontario to advise on intellectual property development and research commercialization. So Louisa, I know you're relatively new in this role, I think, or at least for the Waterloo region. Over to you.
Thank you, Harold. Thank you for inviting me. It's been challenging doing these outreach events in these times, so I really appreciate the opportunity to speak to the academic and industry communities. So I'm just going to share my screen here. Hopefully this will work.
And it.
All right. So as Harold mentioned, I'm from NSERC, and today I'll be giving you a background of the Alliance grants. And I'm located at the Ontario office. So here's my contact. Feel free to jot that down. And I also have it at the end of the slide, and I'm sure the organizers will share that information with you as well. So NSERC is the Natural Sciences and Engineering Research Council of Canada, and we are the largest provider of grants and scholarships in Canada in the fields of natural sciences and engineering. So through our various grant programs and scholarships, we have an annual budget of $1.3 billion, and we support about 12,000 researchers, 32,800 students and fellows, and through our applied projects, 3,200 partners as well. So with the Alliance grants, these are focused on research partnerships. And our intention is to support research in the natural sciences and engineering by supporting the strong and complementary collaborative teams. And through these funding programs, we support collaborations through a wide variety of organizations, such as private, public, and not-for-profit. As well, we also encourage interdisciplinary collaborations, especially in the space of AI. There can be some ethical considerations, some humanistic considerations that you might want to consider in that space. And so this allows you to fund up to 30% of the project costs towards those types of projects. And then as well, this program is relatively new. We're entering our 3rd year. And so with the design of this program, we hope to remove the barriers and provide more flexibility in how partnerships are built and support the development of generation of knowledge, accelerate the application of research results, and primarily for the benefit of Canadians. So since we have our partner organizations here today, I just wanted to give an overview of what are the benefits of collaborating with universities. So with universities, you have access to world-class knowledge and expertise. You also have access to state-of-the-art research facilities. And you can leverage these R&D investments towards cash contributions. Your cash contributions can be matched by NSERC, and these can be used to train and recruit high-quality professionals, or HQP. And so as a result of these projects, you're expected, or the results that can come out of these projects are to generate new knowledge, technology, create economic, social, and or environmental benefits, support public policy, train new researchers, and bring in diverse perspectives and skills to accelerate the translation and application of research results. So this is just a snapshot of the Alliance grants. So who we fund are university researchers in collaboration with private sector, public, or not-for-profit organizations. Your projects can span from 1 to 5 years. And we fund projects in which the ask can be from NSERC from 20,000 to 1 million per year. So that's not the size of the entire project, but the ask that you can request from NSERC. So as I mentioned previously, the partner organizations can be from the private, public, and not-for-profit. So there can be multiple organizations. At least one must be recognized for cost sharing. And what that means is that it must fit into our eligibility criteria. And so at least one of these organizations must make a cash contribution that is matched based on the cost sharing ratio. And I'll give a little bit more details into that when I describe the different potential options that you can select. So as well, each of the partners must be involved in the project and contribute to its success. And at least one must have the ability to exploit the research results to achieve the desired outcomes. And I also just made a note here for private organizations. This is fairly new in the last year or so, in which NSERC does require any organizations from the private sector to complete a risk assessment form in which researchers will have to assess what are the security risks that might be involved in the research that they're proposing. So how can the funds be used in this grant program? So for Alliance, we fund the direct costs of research, and this is used primarily for salaries for students, fellows, professional support. And we also fund small equipment and cost of operations, consumables, travel related to research, and dissemination, so conferences and travel to organizations. So there are two options to the Alliance grants. The first option is the full range from 20,000 to 1 million per year for 1 to 5 years. And these will fund most projects in which cash contributions are required from the organization. For option two, this range is smaller, so from 30,000 to 300,000 per year for 1 to 5 years. And this is funds specific projects with the potential for public impact. And because this special option is in the smaller range, there's no cash requirements as well. And I'll detail that in the next few slides. So the cost share ratio for option 1 will depend on several factors, one being what type of organization you are, if there are more than one organization, and the types of organizations. So if you are a large organization, we're more than 500 employees globally, and you're a single partner organization in the partnership, then we will request that the organization contributes 50%. So NSERC will match 1-to-1 the cash contributions. However, if there are more than one organization of different types, so let's say a large organization is partnered with another organization of a different sector, such as not-for-profit or public, or with a different size organization like small or medium size, then they'll be eligible for a cost sharing ratio of 66.7%, or NSERC will match 2-to-1 of the cash contributions. This will also apply for organizations with fewer than 500 employees globally. So smaller organizations will also be eligible for this 2-to-1 ratio. So alliance option number 2. So this option is open to all organizations, and NSERC will fund up to 100% of costs. I put this shiny new sticker here because this is just happened in the last week or so, in which we used to request about 10% from the private sector for the project, but now NSERC will just fund the entire project. In this option, organization, at least one, must be recognized for cost sharing, even if no cash contributions are provided. So they must still fit the eligibility criteria. And they should include organizations representing the interested societal groups and end users. So it might, they might not be partner organizations directly involved in the research itself, but they should be included to demonstrate that they're being considered. So I think it's worth giving more details about what we're looking for in option 2, because there are different requirements. So in this proposal, there are 3 specific characteristics that are required to qualify for option 2. They must demonstrate that they have societal impact, that they're making connections, and they're delivering broad outcomes. So I'll detail that more specifically. So characteristic 1, societal impact. You need to demonstrate that you'll be focused on important and unmet needs affecting society. And this can be regionally, nationally, globally. That is important to Canada. And in other words, the outcomes must reach beyond the partner organization, so not just benefiting their bottom line, but it should have an impact and benefit to society. Characteristic 2 is making connections. So in delivering these benefits, there should be engagement of all relevant stakeholders in the ecosystem or value chain surrounding the problem, so that you'd be able to bring relevant societal perspectives or skill sets. You can help merge ideas, overcome barriers, find creative solutions, ensure that the project is need-driven, and that you're integrating solutions with decision makers across different sectors. And as well, in making these connections, all the partners must be strongly committed and active, not just put in there to make the proposal look good. And the last characteristic is broad outcomes. So generating benefits outside of the organizations. There should be a clear strategy or plan to communicate the results in an accessible format for potential users. As well, intellectual property that's generated cannot be a barrier for the use of the results. So there has to be an actual benefit that comes out of it that's not limited by the intellectual property. So overall, for the organizations in the audience, the key takeaways and next steps. So if your organization currently is interested or has R&D challenges that requires research in the natural sciences and engineering, and you wish to address a research challenge in collaboration with one or more university professors, the Alliance grant could be an option for you. the first step would be to visit the website to get an understanding of the requirements that are involved, or to contact me or the Alliance email here directly. Next is to find an academic partner. Just to echo what Amir had said earlier, really the research offices are the best resource to finding that, and contacting them would find that match easily. You can also visit, if you're looking for something very specific, you can visit our awards database or contact our regional offices, and we'd be happy to support you there as well. And then the last step would really be to identify how the cost sharing mechanism would work, what you would be eligible for, and the size of project that would work for you. So I just want to give a brief mention of our partner programs, since we have both OCI and Mitacs here. So with the NSERC Alliance, there may be cases where you would want to build upon the projects. So NSERC does not fund piloting or validation research. So building on that through OCI or Mitacs is a really great opportunity. As well, working with their business development officers, they really take you through the process and can really support you with the application. And by engaging in these partner programs, there's also a streamlined process in which, rather than applying for each independently, you can apply for just one application, and it'll go through a review process just one time. So it really will speed up the process. And we try to simplify it as much as possible. As well, we currently have a special call, which I thought might be of interest for the audience. NSERC has a partnership with the National Science Foundation in the States, in which they encourage collaboration in the fields of quantum science and artificial intelligence. So a single collaborative proposal will be submitted to the NSF, and certain programs are eligible for that, in which you would be able to find out through the website. And the same funding limits and grant duration as the Alliance program apply here. And there are no requirement for partner organizations here, but it doesn't mean that they can't or shouldn't be involved. It's not required. So if there are some involved, then they would still be eligible to participate in this research. So I list the links here, which I think the organizers have, so they'll be able to share with you as well. And I think that is it for me. So I'll happy to take any questions.
Okay, Louisa, great presentation. Can I throw a few questions at you?
Sure.
First one, if I have funds at the university which came from a donation, can these be used as the cash contribution, i.e. kind of like the partner part to the Alliance?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. It really depends on the organization and whether they would still be actively involved in the project. So if the money came from an organization that had activity in Canada, and they were able to exploit the results, or there are other partners that could be involved, then it really wouldn't eliminate the possibility of doing that. But it would have to make sense in the proposal.
Okay, next question. For option 2 that you talked about, do the organizations have to meet all 3 of those characteristics or only one?
Yes, all 3. All
3. Okay, good to know. I have a question myself, because we've had a lot of interaction, alliances, if you want to call them, with some foreign universities, Bordeaux in France, for instance, Twente, I think I'm calling it right, from Netherlands. And there are some opportunity for joint projects between researchers from those schools and at Waterloo. Is there an NSERC opportunity? Is that a whole separate program from the international?
Yeah, I didn't mention it here, but there is Alliance International that launched recently as well. So I could share that link with you, but that provides the opportunity for researchers at the University of Waterloo to partner with any university outside of Canada, and it doesn't require a partner organization.
Okay. If you could send that link to both myself, just email it to me and I can get it off to everyone who attended.
Absolutely.
So I have personal email. Someone couldn't stay, and I'll send you their link. That they have some questions. I'll connect the two of you. Louisa, thanks for your presentation. For NSF dash NSERC proposals, should the NSF one should be funded first, and then the PI, the Canadian University, apply for NSERC?
Yeah, so that's a single application. The American researcher actually has to submit the application. So the first step would be to engage with the collaborator in the US and identify the programs that are eligible and whether they're able to apply for there. And if they get awarded, then the NSERC funds would fund the Canadian researcher and the NSF funds would fund the American researcher.
Okay, so if anyone, I'm going to just say to the audience, if you reach out to me, I can get you connected with Louisa, or she has her email. So one way or the other, they can send you your questions directly.
Yep.
Someone asked here about missing part of the presentation. Is it being recorded? The answer is yes. And where is it going to be restored? Accessible on our Waterloo AI YouTube channel. So it's there for everyone. It's growing. We're growing in our number of views. So yes, all of these will be available after the fact. So even for yourself or any of your colleagues who want to review the chat afterward. Okay, any other questions for Louisa? Okay, question here for you. I see that you don't have the same 2-year maximum for a project. You're up to 5 years, different than the VIP. Who are the companies that are applying for option 2? Are they more of an SME style company, just past startups? What's the requirements on option 2?
I haven't looked at the metrics on that, but I have seen the full range. So it's not any organization is eligible. We are only for, let's say, for private sector, our only limitation is that there's 2 full-time employees. So if the startup has 2 full-time employees, then they would be eligible for it.
Okay, that's good to know then. Sorry, how many full-time employees? 5? You said? 2. 2? Mm-hmm. Oh, excellent. Okay, so again, back to the NSF, NSERC, the grant does it only support AI and quantum, or both AI and or quantum? Is it is it the joint of the 2 or either one?
It's and or. So there's specific programs that at the NSF. So there might be some that might be eligible just for AI, some might for quantum. So you'd have to look at the NSF programs to see.
Okay. But this joint program isn't for any other fields, just those 2. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Anonymous attendee here. How are researchers able to find their eligibility requirements, timelines, and partnerships? Is there a manual process?
So their eligibility requirements are on their website. So we do detail, depending on whether you're for-profit, private, not for-profit, or public. So we break down which ones are eligible, which ones are not. So that'll be available on the website. But really the easiest way would just to email me and I can tell you directly. Okay.
I just noticed Jacob posted our YouTube link in the chat box for anybody who is curious. There it is for again, all of our other events we've had. Even yesterday, we're having ongoing events throughout the year. So, okay, so that one's been answered. Any other questions here? We have a few more minutes. What else here now? So 1.3 billion annually. When does that year end?
When is the fiscal year?
In other words, when do you fill up the bucket again? And does this ever run out really, or is it kind of an endless pot?
I wouldn't say it was an endless pot, but we do manage the pot as it comes in. So if the pot looks like it's very plentiful, then we put out some more programs that we think would fill that pot.
I see. And is this a typical government program that's ending in the end of March, April kind of thing, or when is the timeline?
We don't, you mean the fiscal year?
Yeah, the fiscal year that drives when it gets replenished.
Yeah, that would be the March.
Okay. Just so we all understand that. Well, we still have 47 attendees, so we must be doing something right with our tax today. Anything beyond the NSF program specifically about AI or things? Because I know there's also some collaborations with Brazil and some of the other countries that are about AI. Anything you want to talk about on that?
About different countries, or
like is there special collaborations with other countries and opportunities for research that people could explore that maybe they don't know about?
There's not there. We have partnerships and programs that are coming out all the time. So I would say keep an eye out on the newsfeed to see what's coming out. But what I presented to you today was the NSF and the international dimension. Those are the two that are currently ongoing.
Okay, so we have a question here for the NSERC International. Can the international partner be for-profit company? ? Are there specific programs for that?
So the Alliance program will allow foreign partnerships, but it must require either a Canadian presence or have a Canadian organization included in the partnership. So the Alliance could be eligible for that project. Okay.
Well, I think unless there's any more questions, we'll save the rest then to the roundtable at the end. And that's, again, a little bit more chat about how do you navigate through the various programs. Oh, actually, one more thing about timeline. When someone applies and puts in one of these applications, what's the expectation? How long is the typical, if there is such a thing, typical turnaround?
So the turnaround will depend on the size of the project. So for smaller projects, so the ask that from NSERC between 20 to 30,000, the turnaround time will be about 5 to 9 weeks. For larger projects, in which we require like an external peer review, that's between 9 and 18 weeks. Okay.
Well, something to keep in mind then. It's not, I mean, I know it's hard to meet the VIP standard of 1 month turnaround. So, okay, great. Well, thank you so much, Louisa, and look forward to you to join the roundtable at the end.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to get ready to go to our next partner, which is the Mitacs presentation. And that's going to be from Amanda Green. So, let me shut off my recording and I'll turn it over to you, Amanda. I'll be right back when the dogs stop barking.
Okay, let's just get the screen share started here. All right, can everyone see my slides? Yes, good.
Okay, so Amanda, the dogs have stopped barking, so now I'll read your intro. So Amanda Green is a director of business development with Mitacs in the Waterloo region. She has a PhD in neuroscience from Dalhousie University and has completed postdoctoral studies at McMaster University. She helped establish links between academic labs and partner organizations, from startups to large companies, and provides strategic advice on project development and funding. Her goal is to increase academic industry partnerships, connecting the best talent with cutting-edge research to help drive innovation in Canada. That's incredible. You rock, Amanda. Over to you.
Thanks, Harold. So thank you, everyone, for joining us today. It's nice to see Louisa and Amira out as well. I know we interact a lot in the ecosystem, and it's good to see the chance to chat about all of our programs and how we can work together. So just quickly, so I am one of the directors on the business development team. I'm co-funded with Communitech, which means I interact with a lot of startups in the region, helping them navigate the process of engaging with universities and how to kind of connect with the talent that we have within the university ecosystem. So for those of you who don't know Mitacs, we are a national organization. We're a not-for-profit, and we really try and work together with academic and industry partners to help really drive new connections, new projects, new research with talent from post-secondary institutions. So our main goal is to really help bring students and researchers together to work on problems that are in the industry world that we can help them to solve. We've been in operation for about 20 years. We've done more than 14,000 projects in that time. On the ground, there are a lot of people like me who are located in different institutions across Canada. So I think we're at almost 100 people now on the business development team with Mitacs, embedded with every different university, college, startup incubators across the country to help kind of facilitate new connections and new projects. So Mitacs works really across the spectrum in terms of the innovation space. So we will help on the more kind of basic research side, where there's a company looking to explore those spaces, all the way through to commercialization and kind of anywhere in the middle where you're looking to build out an applied research project, where there's an opportunity for a business or a not-for-profit to work with you in the academic space and kind of come up with a new project or a new innovation from there. So as I mentioned, Mitacs does have people across Canada. We're here to help navigate the process. So if you are looking for company partners and you're not sure how to help find them, we have a list Harold mentioned, and I'll put a link to it in the chat again, of open projects with companies we've met with in the past that are looking to find partners. We also have our own networks of professors and groups like Waterloo AI that we work with to help find the right expertise for projects.
So if I can jump in for a second, how does a partner get their needs and how do they get on that list?
Yeah, so there's a few different options. So one can be coming through your university partner if you have somebody like Harold that you're already working with. We can post essentially a job ad on our website sometimes to help find new students to recruit for a project. Or we have kind of a network of partners that we've done projects with in the past that we may be able to reach out to if you're looking for a specific area that you want to do more work in. So really connecting with us, connecting with Waterloo AI and the business development team is the best way to kind of find those connections. And then we have networks like we send an email, like I said, to faculty every 2 weeks with some of the new projects that are coming up and coming open. Or we kind of do meetings like this to kind of raise awareness with different groups too. So, one of our main goals is to work closely with companies. We see the opportunity to employ students as a real advantage for companies, especially in the AI space where there's so much cutting edge research going on, and the opportunity to kind of have access to that talent and have access to that front line of what's going on in the R&D world is a really important advantage for companies to work with university partners. Louisa touched on that a bit as well. It's an opportunity to build out a new team, find new talent, kind of explore opportunities, and build out new projects that you might not be able to do otherwise. It's also more flexible than hiring somebody full-time for a company, right? If they want to bring someone for a 2-year master's project to kind of build out a project-specific R&D team for something that used to be the side of the desk, now it's something that they can do more full-time in collaboration with a university researcher, helping them kind of build that project out and build that process out together. I mean, we're really here to help translate the challenges that a company is having into a research problem that we can use to support from the Mitacs side. IP is a question that's negotiated with the university. Mitacs isn't really involved in those conversations, but we're happy to help connect you to people like Harold who can help make that happen on the university side. One of the important things with Mitacs is we tie all of our funding to students. So we can start very small. So you can have one academic supervisor, one student on a project, one partner company, and sort of a small 4-month short-term project. And the idea is if you have something that you're looking to get started or you want to kind of try out, this is a good opportunity to work there. But we're not limited to that small kind of 4 to 6 month scope. There actually isn't an upper limit to the size of a Mitacs project. We're only limited by the students that you have and the funding that's available really from the company partner. You can do as many 4 to 6 month internships as you need to do a project with multiple companies, multiple partners to kind of help you work on maybe different aspects of a larger, more complex project to kind of help achieve your goals there. In terms of the financing, we do this through a number of different programs, but we don't necessarily want our academic or industry partners to need to be the expert on the jargon, right? This is where the business development team, the 90 plus of us now, will come in. So if you have a potential partnership, we can have a conversation with you and help decide which program might be the best fit, rather than you having to go through the websites and figure out which one of these might be the best option for you. So at a high level, almost all of our programs are funding for student salary and some project expenses. So, travel, reagents, equipment, some of those pieces, but mostly focus on that student stipend and student salary to work on different projects in research and innovation space. And I'll talk about kind of our main Accelerate program as the sort of flagship that we have, and some of the other programs in a bit as well. But Most of them cash contribution from the company, time working on a project, and it has to be a student and a university supervisor involved. So again, all of our projects require the kind of three pieces of the triangle here. We need a partner organization from the community. So this can be a small and medium business, a large multinational, a not-for-profit partner, a municipal government partner, whoever it is in the community who's going to be benefiting from the research and working with us on these projects. The academic institution needs to be a player. There needs to be a faculty supervisor on board to co-supervise, to manage funding, to make sure that you're kind of following the research process, and then a student or recent grad who can stand in the middle. So the student or the recent graduate is there really to work with both sides of this team to help a project come together. So they're there to actually do the work on the ground to make that project happen. In terms of who we can work with, on the company side, we've actually broadened out our types of projects that we can work on. We can work with for-profit companies as well as not-for-profits. And in the last year, we've expanded our eligibility to include hospital partners as well as municipalities. So if you were doing a project with, say, the city of Stratford or Grand River Hospital, there's an opportunity there for them to provide funding and to work with us on a Mitacs project. We pride ourselves on being discipline agnostic, so we'll work across all sectors, across all disciplines, all types of projects, as long as there's a research or an innovation focus to it. And we've also expanded our eligibility on the student side, so we can work with college students, undergraduates, grad students, all the way through to recent grads. So people who finished their master's within the last 2 years may still be eligible for a project with us. Again, we can kind of start on a smaller scale. So on the lower end, you're looking at a $10,000 project, maybe a four-month project with an undergrad, all the way up to a multi-million-dollar, multi-student, multi-year project. We do our best to keep the application process as simple as we can, and it is peer-reviewed, but it is also non-competitive in the sense that because you have the member of the business development team working with you, we're not going to let you submit an application that doesn't fit the mandate and the spirit of the programs. And so we do have a 95% plus success rate. Sometimes it has to go through a round of revisions first, but there's an opportunity there if you're submitting through Mitacs to have that funding come through for a project, because we're there to support you the whole way through the process. So again, you kind of have this time frame where you can start with one module, moving up to multiple, and the idea is that the intern is going to be spending time working with both the partner organization and the post-secondary institution. And between the two partners, depending on the project, they can spend up to 75% of their time with one or the other. So they're going to be acting as the bridge between the two, spending time with both partners, but can lean one way or the other depending on the project size and scope. Most of our projects start with a minimum budget of about $15,000 and 4-month project. And the standard for our projects is a 50-50 cash contribution. So we don't have an opportunity to leverage in kind, but there's typically a 50% cash contribution. So 15K, say for 4 months for a master's student on a project, gets built up from there. But we also have a bit more flexibility. So 15K is sort of the standard, but we can go anywhere from 10K to 20K per term. So again, 5 to 10 from the company, 5 to 10 from Mitacs, getting scaled up from there. We also have a new program that we've rolled out for SMEs in particular. And so if you're working with a small or medium enterprise, so a business with less than 500 employees or a not-for-profit with less than 500 people in their organization, there's an opportunity to leverage a much better deal right now. So it's 25% of the cost of the project can be covered by the company. Right now, this is sort of a as quantities last type deal. So capacity is limited for the project. We're waiting to see how we roll it out, but we do have quite a bit of funding for it right now. So if you're looking to do a project with an SME, this might be an opportunity to build either a bigger project than maybe you were looking at previously, or a longer term as an opportunity to kind of build in a 3-to-1 leverage for any students that you're hiring. And just to give you an example of what that might look like, for example, on the lower end, if you're looking at those $10,000 a year, $10,000 term units, a company could be putting in $7,500 per student per year for a project. And on the upper end at a 60K level, you'd be looking at only $15,000 from the company, getting matched with $45K from Mitacs to help build out a bigger, longer term project. We can also work with international partners and strategic partners. So we work with a number of other organizations across Canada. So OCI and NSERC, who are our partners here today, we work together on a number of specific projects to help leverage the funding. Often these are streamlined joint applications. So for example, we work closely with NSERC on a joint application process. With OCI, we have a process where we can use their review team for the VIP program to get that faster review time that you may have through OCI for those smaller projects. There's a lot of opportunities to leverage the funding and make sure that it goes as far as it can for any project that you're working on. Just to give you an example, because this NSERC one is newer. So for example, in the NSERC Mitacs joint program for alliance options, if you're working with a large multinational company, so as Louisa described the process for alliance option 1, there's an opportunity there for an industry cash contribution of say $30,000 to get matched with funding from both Mitacs and NSERC to come up with a better and more enhanced leverage on the back end for a project. Similarly, if you're working with the NSERC 2-to-1, it could be a $30,000 cash contribution from a company being matched with 30K from Mitacs and 60K from NSERC for a bigger leverage on the project. We also have expanded in the last year to a few new areas. So we do work primarily with Accelerate in the research space, but we also have rolled out a new program called the Business Strategy Internships. The funding model is the same. You start with those 4 to 6 month blocks, so they're usually 50-50 split, and you build them up for bigger, longer term projects. But in this case, what we recognize is there's a lot of opportunities for more applied research, or maybe something that is a benefit to the organization and to the students, but doesn't necessarily fit a more traditional research project. And this is where these types of projects can come in. So if someone's looking for, say, building out a new UI UX process for their business, or a new workflow, or a new dashboard, and there's an opportunity to build something cool and innovative, but it's not necessarily going to be publishable, this can fit under that umbrella. So it's really anything where there's kind of a marked change or improvement for the partner organization. So commercialization, IP generation, new processes, new workflows, those types of things fit under this umbrella. And these projects are meant to be a little bit quicker turnaround because they don't have to go for the same level of peer review, but it's an opportunity to maybe do a knowledge translation project on something you've already been working on, or kind of improving or commercializing something that you're doing in partnership with another organization. Another program that I wanted to flag for today in particular is the Accelerate Explorer program. So this is meant to be a short-term project that might be of particular interest to AI researchers. So what we were finding in a lot of cases is sometimes a company would come to us and say, we have a lot of data and we want to do a research project and we think we have something really cool, but they would go to begin the research and maybe they didn't have the data that they thought they did, or maybe they couldn't answer the questions they were looking at. And so what we've really created with this program is a short-term consulting option. And what this program does is it allows a grad student to come in and evaluate the needs of the company, take a look at the data that they have, take a look at the way that it's coded, the way it's put together, and make recommendations on a project. So they're not actually going to be doing the research project, but it's the prep work that you need to do before you can make a plan for how you want to use the data and what kind of research projects you can pull out. So this could be really beneficial for any partners that you're working with where they know they want to work with AI, but they're not necessarily sure what they want to do. And it's a way to compensate those students and the professors for their time for that project. So we do, it's a shorter term project, again, 8 weeks full-time, up to 16 weeks part-time. And it's a smaller commitment in terms of funding. So you're looking at $6,000 to kind of do something part-time, to work with a company to go through their data and see what level they're at and see how their project is being put together. So really where Mitacs can be beneficial for companies is we can help companies to answer a research question where they're maybe not looking in their typical area of expertise. So in AI in particular, there's always new research coming out, and there's a lot of companies that would like to get into AI research but don't necessarily have the expertise in-house to do that. And so partnering with groups like the AI Institute and using Mitacs to fund those students can be a way for a company to work in new technologies without necessarily having to build out their own team right away. So this is just an example of a project we did with Kite, where they were looking at kind of trust with the chatbot, and they wanted to work with a Waterloo psychology researcher to help design a study to analyze their trust behaviors in working with this chatbot. Another one, as I mentioned, AI talent is scarce on the ground, as we all know, in terms of when people are graduating and being recruited into companies. And it's an opportunity to work with a team of highly qualified researchers being supervised by an academic who has more knowledge of the field, has an understanding of the cutting edge techniques, and kind of help guide and supervise the students on a project. In this case, this is a project we're doing with David Classy in the VIP lab with a company called Stathletes, and they are doing image processing and recognition of NHL hockey teams, looking at kind of, shot counts and things like that, and kind of helping to build a bigger team to recognize and improve on the algorithms that they have there. We also can often work with professor or student run startups. There are sometimes some additional hoops that you need to jump through to be able to make sure that we fit this in the spirit of the program and make sure that there's a good balance between the research and the business side. But there's an opportunity to work with us if you do have, say, a grad student building a company of their own or a spinoff from the professor side. There may be an opportunity there to work with us to help build out a proposal to fund researchers and building those projects. So just to kind of summarize the possible partners, we can work with, again, as a wide range of opportunities to work with different partners. So for-profit companies, some crown corporations, municipalities, hospitals, not-for-profits, some international companies, student and postdoc startups, as well as some professor startups. And this is just really an opportunity for a lot of these companies to kind of de-risk the process of doing some of this R&D and help them to fund bigger projects and bigger collaborations with the university. So hopefully this is giving you a good overview of what we do at Mitacs. We're happy to have a conversation at any point in the process. If you're thinking about a collaboration, we do work closely with the researchers in the community as well as other company partners, and we can have a conversation about what makes sense, whether Mitacs is a good fit or not, or whether there's an opportunity to leverage some of our joint funding programs and see what the best way is to move that forward. We'll work with you through the whole process. We'll help introduce you to professors. Some of our job is that legwork, working with Harold and some other groups to reach out to the experts across the country to find the right people to work on a project, and then providing the funding to make sure that that project can be as big as we can manage in terms of the timing for it. So I'll leave that there and answer any questions that you have.
Excellent. Thanks, Amanda. So again, call out to everyone with questions. I'm going to start with a few of my own to keep the flow. So I'm going to go back to your business strategic, I think it was initiative, the BSI program.
Yep.
I'm not sure I've heard of that one before. If you could elaborate a little bit.
Yeah.
You said ideally there's not some goal of a paper to be published or whatever. And the reason I want to put a framework on this, a lot of companies are trying to figure out AI, what is it? How do we do it? Oh, there's this big bad word called data. Do we have the right data? Don't we? Different than your other initiative, the Explore program,
Mm-hmm.
Could someone under the BSI be hired to go in and build or clean up or make their data usable?
Absolutely. So the idea really is the project has to be something that we can point to at the end that has a tangible change or innovation for the company. So we're trying to avoid something where it's like data entry and they just have to sit there and they're not learning anything and they're not doing anything useful. But if there's kind of something you can point to and say, we've optimized this workflow, or we've created a new process, or we've made a new dashboard, or whatever it is that kind of helps point to something that's going to improve the company and provide a good experience for the student, that's what fits under that category.
Okay,
so
so
co-ops will fit
so
there.
what if we did the Explore first, where
Mm-hmm.
someone went in and again, does that have like I put this in quotes because it said senior grad student? Could that be a postdoc or a research associate, or does it have to be like a master's or PhD? Like where are we at there?
It could be a postdoc. All Mitacs projects they kind of cap out at postdoc. So anything beyond 5 years post PhD, you'd be going to NSERC or someone else. But for anything up to 5 years post PhD.
Okay, so say that postdoc went into a company, kicked the tires, checked and see what data they had, and they fulfilled this 2 or 3 months, whatever the timeline is, to look at, are they AI ready? And then the answer is no, you're not ready. We need to now take this and maybe work with people in their team to get this data into a state where we can start to analyze it and use it for prediction and things like that. Would that flow over then to the business and strategic initiative scenario?
Yes. And then the idea hopefully is that at the end of these processes, they have a good research project, right? So they have something that they can build and put together that can be a research project that they're working on, because that's sort of where those processes can come together. So they could start with, what data do you have? What kinds of things could you do? What do you need to do to get your data to the point where it can be usable? And then using that data for a research project. So all of those are meant to flow together. BSI can also work on the other end. So you have something completed, you have your algorithms, you have your research done, but you need to do more on the market research side or the commercialization side, or you need somebody to help you with IP pieces. Those can all be student projects too. It's meant to be things kind of outside of the scope of normal research, but still tied to turning that research into a real innovation project.
So kind of bringing somebody in who's got a better technical eye, more experience, but there's not going to be a published paper or anything that comes from it.
Yeah.
So how do they do the BSI? How does it happen?
So BSI is actually done, again, you still need a faculty supervisor, you still need a student, you still need a company partner. The funding model is the same, that 4 months, 50-50 split of the funding and up, but it doesn't go for external peer review because it doesn't need to be peer reviewed because it's not a research project, right? So there is a shorter proposal form that gets completed for that. And that can be done through an internal review. So it's a little bit faster turnaround. Right now, a lot of these are being done through the co-op office. So the Masters in Data Science co-op, for example, or some of the undergrad co-op students are finding projects in those spaces, but that's really the difference. So when a company is looking to collaborate, we just really have to ask, is this traditional research or is this more of kind of a project related to that research? And then we can go from
kind
there.
of a pre-research project. So the companies could just reach out to myself. I'd help figure out their needs, match them with a researcher, PI that would be interested in this. Okay, so let me ask the other question. Why would a researcher or PI be interested?
It's a good question. So part of it is there is an opportunity to do projects related to that BSI, right? So you're establishing a relationship with a company, you're getting access to their data, you get an opportunity to see what they're doing, and there may be a good relationship that you can build there for longer term projects. So if you start with the BSI and you help them build out their algorithms, build out their processes, then you have access to that data set potentially down the road for other research. It's also a chance for students who maybe don't want to take the academic route if they're finishing out at their master's and they're done. This is a way to get them some of that work integrated learning experience too for some of those programs. So depending on what you're doing and how the project comes out, that can be a good opportunity. Also, even if it's a knowledge translation project on the other end, you've done a research project, you want to come up with some ways to kind of get that information out and help commercialize a product that you helped them build, then you can do it on that side too. It doesn't have to be pre-research, it can be kind of post-research too.
Okay, so I've got questions popping up now. I think I've opened a can of worms on BSI. First of all, could it be a co-op as an undergrad?
Yes, we can work with co-ops. We work with the undergrad office for co-ops right now.
Oh, so. Awesome. Okay, so here's the questions here again, and these are all from anonymous attendees. That seems to be a popular person today. Is BSI and other funding open for international students too? Yes, so Mitacs programs are funded through the university. So essentially students are going to be getting a stipend or a salary through their supervisor as an RA type role. So ultimately we encourage people to double check with their immigration consultants, but from the perspective of kind of getting paid to do research on campus, which is what they're doing, that fits in that space. So we say intern sometimes because that's the company language that makes sense, but they are being employed in a research space on campus. Okay, and how long does it typically take to match students, academic institutions, and industry partners? It's a good question. It depends on the project. Some fields are higher demand than others in terms of what people are looking for. Often we come into a place where there's partners already ready to go on at least part of it. So there's usually a supervisor and a company who worked together in the past, or a student who's interested in the project. It depends on how many pieces you need to pull together. It can be anywhere from a few weeks to a few months, depending on how many moving pieces there are to that process. So we do have a kind of long list of companies that we work with, and I'll put that in the chat again here for everyone if they're interested, of open projects that we're currently doing. So you can kind of take a look at some of the things that we do now in terms of the research that's there. So I can give that link to people if they want to take a look. These are companies that have come to us already and are looking for partners. So that can be a fast track. If you already know someone that you want to work with, obviously it's quicker, but we do our best on the matchmaking side. So I'm privy to this list because typically you bounce it over to me about every 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. These are broad scoped projects, not just AI, across them all. We've actually taken the time to filter out the AI ones and blast them off to individual researchers that may be interested. I'm trying to think on a more effective way to get this to our professors. One of the thoughts I had here is maybe we create a little Mitacs link on our own Waterloo AI website. And every time you send me a new link, I update the link, something like that. Or maybe, do these projects roll over quickly? I mean, is it going to be same ones on the list in a month from now, or?
So we send out a new list of everything that's come out in the last 2 weeks, curated for the universities. The list that I sent you a link to is everything that's open that's currently hasn't been closed on our website. So there's more of a range of projects there. Some of them have been there for longer and some of them have just come up. The list that I send you in the email is everything new for the 2 weeks before.
Okay.
So.
Okay. So we'll figure out a way to again, keep bringing this funnel of opportunity to researchers.
Yeah. And there may be opportunities too to put it in front of some of the grad students, especially upper year PhDs maybe, or some of the master students. Sometimes they can drive some of those collaborations too, if it's something that they're interested in, and that takes some of the burden off the supervisors too, to kind of start it out.
So this is a nitty gritty question you didn't talk too much about today, that I understand you call them the researcher, which would be the student doing the work. There's a requirement, I believe you've called in the past, that they have to spend some time at the company, or what does that really mean now with COVID and virtual?
Yeah, so with everything virtual right now, we're counting virtual interactions as interactions. Really what we're trying to do is make sure that they're not going off and doing contract research and not getting the opportunity to interact with the company. What we want the students to be able to get from the experience is both the research itself that they're doing and the funding, but also to see, how the company works, to see what it's like to kind of maybe attend some strategy meetings, to get that other perspective on how to work with the data. And so they can do that in Zoom calls, they can do that in kind of other types of meetings that they're doing. We just want to make sure that they have a plan in place to interact regularly with that partner, both to make sure that everybody's on the same page with how the deliverables are progressing, and also to make sure that the student gets that experience and that chance to see the other side of the research space.
Okay, so I'm going to just cut us off there. We're running a little ahead of schedule, but what I'm going to do now is open it into the broader forum, and people who have thoughts or ideas to mix and match, how do they do these bundled projects? So I'm going to ask Amir and Louisa to turn on their camera, and Patrick as part of the panel. And where are we going to start? Who's ready to go first? About how do you do a joint project? Okay, I'm going to put the spotlight on Louisa. How do they start? And who is they? Is that the professor? Is it a industry partner who has this idea, or where does it start?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think in every situation, it happens in a different way. I think reaching out to any of us is a good way to start. With the application process, with either partnered with Mitacs or with OCI, it has to go through the NSERC portal. So it will be familiar to researchers on their side. But in terms of evaluating the project itself, that's best through the OCI or Mitacs itself, because they are able to look at the project, look at the eligibility requirements of the organization as well as the researcher, and really go through the application process with them, which NSERC doesn't do. So the benefit of that is that the quality of applications that we get from those partner programs are better than the ones that sometimes than the ones that goes directly, because they don't have the benefit of the expertise of those organizations. So just reaching out to any one of us, we can direct you to which one best suit the project, and go from there.
Just
Okay.
kind of build on that, Harold.
Sure.
So one of the things that works really well for the NSERC Mitacs collaboration is, I mentioned we have our 3-to-1 from Mitacs for SMEs, but we can't do that for multinational companies. But if you can combine the funding for an NSERC Alliance option 1 between a Mitacs and an NSERC, then you have an opportunity for a big company to get a better than 1-to-1 leverage. So there's an opportunity there for them to get a little bit more funding for bigger projects. We also sometimes fund slightly different things, right? So as Amir mentioned, they focus a lot on the commercialization side. There's more funding on the industry piece. So maybe that makes sense to do more funding for that part of the project through OCI, and then adding some additional PhD students through Mitacs, or hiring a research associate professor from NSERC and then bringing on the master's students from Mitacs. Like we can work together because we overlap a lot, the three of us, in a lot of ways, but there are kind of unique distinctions to each of the three programs where we can make maybe that core project a little bit bigger with a little bit of differences in the exceptions between the three. So
yeah, and just actually following up on what Amanda mentioned, I want to say that as long as that the pool of money that they dedicate to the VIP project, for example, is exclusive to the VIP, and they have another pool of money exclusive to the Mitacs. So we are completely fine with it. They cannot. We've seen many projects that has been a very, very big project. The core of the project were funded by the VIP, and then because they need more human resources, they use the Mitacs. So it's completely doable in that way, as long as the cash contribution is exclusive to each of those applications. It's 100% okay, and we even actually supported and promoted more. So I think that was a good point, Amanda. Thank you.
Okay. So they can knock on any of the three doors. Let's talk about the flow of funds. I know I'm going to start with you, Amanda, because it's a little different with your organization, I think, with the other two. So we go through the whole process. Mitacs gets approved and the whole bit. How does the money finally end up in the researcher's hand?
yes, so one thing with Mitacs is the funding has to come through our programs. So what that means is a company or not-for-profit partner will be invoiced by Mitacs. We'll get the money first, we'll add our piece to it, and the whole amount gets sent to the university researcher to be administered as a grant. So the funding ultimately does come to campus. It's in a research account that's put together by ORS, but it all comes in one chunk, which is a bit different than the way NSERC and OCI do things. So for NSERC, I believe the money comes directly from the industry partner to the university, and then the NSERC money comes directly to the university. I think that might be the same for OCI. I'm not sure.
Right. So wait a second then. So if I'm the industry partner and I've signed on for the basic program of 15,000 every term. So every 4 or 6 months, let's call it 6 months, I have to put up another 15,000. I don't have to put up the whole 2 years all on day one. Is that correct?
So you can go either way. We have the option to do annual billing, term billing, or kind of lump sum, whatever combination makes sense for the industry partner and for the work that's being done on campus. So if they want to do it at the start of a year and they have to get something off their books for fiscal, we can invoice the entire amount. If they prefer to pay it by term, if they're a startup and maybe they don't have all of the cash flow to do it right away, then we can do it that way too.
Okay, so I'm going to bounce it over to you, Amir, or Patrick, whoever wants to answer it from OCI. How did the flow of funds?
It's actually, Amanda mentioned correctly. So what happened is for us, the flow of fund will go to university directly. So, and then the university will invoice the company as well. So at the end of the day, the PI as a main applicant, it's not just in charge for the milestones aspect of the projects, but also for the financial claims. So what will happen is, again, the university will send us the claims, and then the financial department at OCI will take a look at it and then reimburse it. And then just, and it depends, they can go for, it really depends on how they want to do it. They want to do it, as long as they send out the report and the claims, we'll look at it and try to reimburse the amount of money that has been incurred.
Right. So you indicated on a side conversation I had, there's a certain chunk, 20% or something that comes up front, and then it's a reimbursed claim. You spend that money, show how it's spent, and then it gets topped up. So it's a constant topping up process.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just walking through some of the nitty gritty here so people understand the flow of funds. And now over to you, Louisa.
Yeah, so the company can directly provide the funds to universities. NSERC will allow researchers to spend the money up to 3 months prior to the acceptance of the grant. So let's say, for example, a researcher in a company undergo like a contract research, and then they realize in the first month or so that this is really exciting work and they should apply and leverage some more funds. So they can apply for an Alliance grant at that point, and we will recognize it up to 3 months prior. So that could be an opportunity to leverage those funds, even if you've already started the research project. So the way that we track whether the industry partner provides a fund is that the Research Finance Office would have to report that they've received it to us.
Okay, so that comment back to Amir, I think you said, Amir, that doesn't work for you guys. You can only spend once you've been approved.
Yes, for us, first of all, we don't have this 90 days. I'm not pretty sure what NSERC call it technically, but I call it grace period. So we don't have it. So whatever they need to wait for the approval. So the day that is mentioned under approval letter, that's the activation date, and the expenses could happen after it. And what was the? So I think that's the main part, and the other part is yes, it will moving forward. It will happen. So we won't. It's claim based. As long as they claim, we will pay.
And I don't think that applies to you, Amanda, or not really.
No, so on the joint applications with NSERC, there's been some wiggle room in the background where the 90-day grace period could apply to the NSERC part of the joint application, but Mitacs works similar to OCI in that we need the approval in place before we start spending the Mitacs money.
So, okay, go on.
I just want to mention that the research office and the finance part of the university, they have a very, very good mechanism in place to support it. So there is no concern from the industry perspective. If they want to do any of these research projects, normally they have very, very good mechanism in place that will ensure the smooth transition of everything. So everyone do it in different ways, but at the end of the day, I've never seen a big problem, at least in the past year that I've been with OCI.
You know, I only asked the question on behalf of industry, who is forever impatient to have the results last week, and always trying to push on. Why can't this go faster? And so that's the frame or the mindset with which I've asked it on behalf of them.
And based on my experience, University of Waterloo is one of the best ones. They have done it for a long period of time. The research office by itself and the finance office, it's they're very, very experienced with these kind of issues. And again, I think there's if it happens, it will happen very smoothly.
Well, I see a couple of OR research office people in the attendees here, so I'm sure they all have a smile on their face now from that comment. Thank you. Okay, I don't have any questions. I don't see any from the field. Is there anything you each have learned from the other program that is something you didn't understand or expect?
Actually, the interesting piece is actually these programs very dynamic. Every time that I see Amanda is actually presenting the Mitacs, there's a new thing happening. We at OCI are doing our best to add new tweaks to our program to make it more to make it more compatible with what's out there in the market. And I mean, just meeting the needs of the industry partner. The same story for NSERC. I think always for me, when I see these presentations, there's one more thing to learn.
Excellent. Well, under that note, I'm going to make a commitment from Waterloo AI. We'll have a separate little chunk in our website about the funding, about these programs, links to the NSF NSERC one, the international one, the local, all these different things. And again, for OCI and again for Mitacs. And so please feel free to be blasting those off to us when the new one comes out, because Amanda, you're like a magician. Every time I talk to you or Ashley, you're always pulling something else out of your sleeve. Oh, we've got a brand new one, another brand new program. So, and I might not know about it, so I wouldn't have reached out to you. So please reach out to us. We'll get them updated on our website. And again, a note to all of our researchers. We'll try and keep you up to date there, but please check out our website frequently for any updates and things like that. So I think we're almost at the end of questions. We're finished 15 minutes early. I really want to thank each of you for attending today. One last thing then, if there's any contact information you want to throw in the chat box, your emails, for people as a last takeaway, I can see, Amanda's been updating the chat box as we're going along. It's always the thing afterwards. They reach out. Sorry, how do we get a hold of Louisa? And there's always going to be follow-up questions. So if any of them you can't reach out to them, or there's any pushback, you can always bring in me to help bend their arm to help whichever way I can. Anyway, again, I want to thank you all for today. And again, this is a recorded event, so we'll make sure this is included on our YouTube, our Waterloo AI YouTube channel. We're trying to get the outreach out there. I said to Amir, we're going to do our best to to draw as many funds as we could out of his VIP program from all of our researcher. I'll probably make the same promise to Louisa and Amanda. We're going to keep coming with more and more. There's lots of interest from, because I also, again, I constantly am guilty of putting on the industry hat. How do I even approach this? Where do I start? And beyond calling Ghostbusters, which isn't going to work, who they're going to call is going to be one of yourself. They can reach out to me, and we're going to keep trying to make sure that it's approachable. That's this approachable AI scenario, because the world is changing so rapidly from AI, and companies don't want to feel left behind, and they may not always have the funding aligned because it's happening now, not in 6 months or a year or 5 years from now. So anyway, thanks again to you all. Any parting comments from each of you?
I just want to thank again for Waterloo AI and Harold, you specifically, for providing this opportunity, and looking forward for similar opportunities in the future. Thank you.
Excellent.
Just want to say thank you to the organizers, Harold, and feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to have one-on-one chats with professors or industry.
Excellent. Okay, and a lot of good comments in the chat. Thanks. Great presentation. Over to you, Amanda. Last comments.
Yeah, no, thanks everyone it was nice to learn some new things about my colleagues at NSERC and OCI as well. Harold, to see everyone. I will flag the SME discount for Mitacs. That 3-to-1 match is kind of a wall quantities last deal. So if you're working with any companies, we were supposed to have a deadline of March 1st and we extended it. So if anybody's working in that space, the next couple months are a good time to get those ones in if we can. So. And
Patrick, don't worry, we're not going to let you off the hook. Patrick's just joined OCI in January this year. So throw him in the deep end a little bit, but you can reach out to Patrick as well. He seems to be up to speed.
Yeah, thank you very much, Harold. Great event.
Okay, everyone, have a great day, and onward and upward. Take care.